welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Sierra Bergen, and today on the podcast, we will be discussing technology and social media. The main question that I will explore is how do we understand ourselves as a result of social media? Now, did you know that the maximum amount of screen time you should have per day is 2 hours? Yeah, 2 hours. I know a lot of us probably go over that. I learned that in elementary school. But did you know that the average screen time for teenagers is almost 9 hours? Yeah, 9 hours. Hey, and if you don't believe me, go check out the My Kids Vision website where they did a whole website on screen time and teenagers and how we can manage it. Now, during that time, we could be going outside or spending time with our family. So, I wanted to put it to the test. I wanted to see how much screen time 25 teenagers were using per day. So, at the end of this podcast, I will share the results from the form I put out. Now, I will get into the podcast. So, I will be interviewing 3 people from 3 different generations where they all grew up with different views on technology. I will be asking them the same 3 questions. Let's get into it. And with the first interview of this podcast, we have Paige Goby. How you doing, Paige?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for asking. So the main question is, how do we understand ourselves as a result of not only social media, but technology as well? The first question I have for you is, have you ever used filters before? If so, what was your experience?
No, I don't really use filters ever, but if I do, it would definitely be the funny ones. So, fun experience.
Which kind of filters do you use?
Anything really that pops up. If my friends send me one, I'll just send it back. Yeah.
That's nice. It can be a good way to connect with people, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. So, if you haven't used filters yourself, what is your thoughts on filters?
I think it definitely depends on the person using them and the type of filter. If it's like a beauty filter, sort of. I don't know what they're called, but then it could be bad if people view themselves and think like, oh, I only look good with this filter on, then they won't see their worth without the filter.
That's a great response. Thank you for that. The second question is, do you have social media? And if so, do you remember when you got it?
Yes, I do, actually. I have social media. I have Instagram, and I got it, I don't know, sometime in 2020. Yeah, it would have been grade 8.
During COVID?
Yes, yeah.
What inspired you, if you will, to get social media?
All my friends had it, so...
So it was a trend.
Yeah, definitely.
Fair enough. How often do you use social media?
Okay, I don't post every day, but, I go on it every day.
How many hours on average do you think?
This is actually bad. Probably, an hour and a half, 2 hours, maybe. Depends on the day. Depends on how bored I am.
Fair enough. So, just going on to using it as a thing if you're bored, do you recognize that sometimes you may endlessly scroll on social media?
Definitely. Yeah, sometimes if I'm tired or procrastinating homework, I just keep going, and then I'm like, oh, there goes 2 hours that I lost doing nothing.
Don't worry, I'm guilty of that too. I do that lots too, and I procrastinate my homework a lot. And the final question of the second question, how do you feel after being on social media?
Definitely depends on what comes up on my feed. If it's sad videos about a family dog dying, then definitely sad. But if it's funny, then normally fine. But every time I'm normally tired.
So you're saying you don't feel as motivated after you go on social media, is that correct?
Yeah.
Fair enough. And then just going on to our last question, technology can be a positive when we are able to connect with others using technology. So how does technology keep you connected to others?
It's basically my only way of keeping in touch with my friends, especially because I live far away. So we call and text and we have group chats, and yeah, it's literally the only way I can talk to them if I'm not in person.
Fair enough. But do you recognize that sometimes it's hard to see the tone sent through a message or facial expressions used when calling?
Definitely, yeah. I don't like calling at all if it's not FaceTime because you can't tell what someone's thinking or like read them. And through text, yeah, sometimes you get some iffy text that you don't know if it's nice or if it's actually really mean. So, yeah.
I can definitely relate to that as well. But yeah, I just want to thank you for being on the podcast. Any last thoughts from you?
Nope. I think this is actually a really great topic because it's unique and not a lot of people think about how social media can affect them.
Yeah, I think it's really important to be aware of the effects of social media. And if we're more aware, we can try to control how much we use social media and technology in general so that we can live our lives and be more productive and use it for good instead of negative ways.
Yeah, I think that's great. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And we're back with another interview. Just to recap, we are going to be asking the question, how do we understand ourselves as a result of social media and technology? I'm here with Crystal Bergen, also known as my mom. How are you doing today?
I'm very good, thank you.
Glad to hear it. So the 3 questions we will be asking are, have you ever used filters before? If so, what was your experience? So, Crystal, what was your experience with filters?
I have to admit, yes, I have used filters, as it definitely makes you feel better when you take a picture using a filter. But then I had the conversation with my husband once about how I would hate to be dating in this day and age with all the filters, because you never know what someone really looks like. And he didn't quite understand what I meant until I showed him a picture of myself that I had just taken. And I said, well, look at this picture. And he said, you look great there. And he's, what's the problem? And I said, it was taken 5 minutes ago. And he was flabbergasted because it looked nothing like what I was looking like at that moment. So I think they can be great. They can make you feel great, look great, but then no one really knows, which, I don't know, maybe it's not important what people look like. But how does that make people feel? Gosh, I don't know. Maybe it makes some people feel self-conscious because everyone else looks so good all the time. But really, it's just the filters. So being aware of that is probably the most important thing.
That's a great answer. I mean, I totally agree with you that filters may be a good thing to some, but overall they can be a big negative when it comes to being self-conscious about yourself. So the second question I have for you is, do you have social media? And if so, when did you get it?
I do have social media. I actually started with, I guess, Facebook, and it was coming out when I was about to have my 10-year high school reunion. And so they needed a way of everybody being able to connect and get a hold of the most people that were in our grad class. And so all of a sudden they said, oh, well, we're going to all sign up for Facebook. And that's how they kind of connected. So
I don't even have Facebook, but I think that's one of the older ones, I believe. No, I'm just kidding. I know what it is. But yeah, it's definitely a good way to connect with others, especially people that you've known for a long time. But to go on to the next part of that question, how often do you go on social media?
I definitely probably go on at least daily, even, not always, but sometimes, just to scroll through and see what's going on, because my soccer teams are all not totally organized, but a lot of them are, well, some of them are totally organized through Facebook. So I go on there to check and make sure I'm not missing games or checking practice time, stuff like that. And just update, see if there's anything super important happening. Although that being said, sometimes I feel like I scroll for half an hour and have learned nothing. So then when I'm done with my Facebook, I feel like I've just wasted half an hour of my life, not learning anything, just scrolling basically through nonsense.
I was waiting to hear about that last part about scrolling endlessly. As we all know, we all do. But even myself am caught doing that a fair amount of times, so I think we all do it. And it's important that we acknowledge that we do it. I think that's a good
Definitely.
Good
If you
thing.
don't acknowledge it, then how do you try to control the amount that you do so you don't feel like you're wasting time?
Yeah, for sure. That's a great way to put it. And then the last part of that second question, how do you feel after being on social media? How does it affect your mood?
Well, if anything, I would say the majority of the time, I'm probably actually not in a great mood afterwards. It is nice to hear about all the good things happening in people's lives, but I don't know. I guess you kind of enjoy that more when you hear about those things with people versus just seeing them on social media. And then when you just scroll and literally learn nothing important because it's just people posting everyday stuff, then I guess I feel frustrated because I hate losing time based on just scrolling.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I know that I definitely feel less productive when I go on social media. So if I need to get homework done and go on social media, it makes me procrastinate a lot. And then going on to our third and final question, how does technology keep you connected to others?
I definitely, my family, because they don't live super close, like my extended family, my brother and his family, we definitely keep mostly in touch through Facebook, whether it's Facebook Messenger or just getting pictures and updates and stuff like that on Facebook. And then the phone, obviously messaging and emails, FaceTime, if you guys are ever away on trips and stuff like that. There's lots of things that are super beneficial for keeping in touch. I do find it strange, though, when you run into people that you haven't seen in a long time. For instance, I ran into a guy I went to high school with just down at the lake the other day. And so I was like, hi.
The lake is where we live, just so you know.
Yes, called this lake. And I didn't recognize him at first. He recognized me, and he's like, Crystal? And I said, yeah. And I was like, oh, Trevor. And so it was kind of this awkward silence because I had seen all his updates on Facebook, and I'm sure he'd seen any updates that I had posted. And so it's like, you kind of know what's happening in people's lives, so you don't know what to ask because you've seen some stuff, but you don't know what all is happening. So it's this, I sometimes feel really awkward when I run into people that I haven't seen in a while because I've got little bits, but not full things. Whereas if I didn't have any of that social media, maybe I would actually engage in a meaningful conversation with them.
Yeah, I think it's really important to get the meaningful conversations. And when you text and call, you can't, especially when you text, you don't know the tone of the person you're talking to. Yes. I mean, when you're calling, you're able to, but you're not able to see people's face expressions when you call them. So it's hard.
Right along that same lines, I actually through work, it was a work email, and I had needing to ask for accommodations for a student, and so I emailed the teacher, explained everything, and the teacher replied no. And I was like, okay, now how do I navigate this whole thing of him declining what he needed to do for the student? Anyways, and then I saw him in the staff room a couple days later, and after I tried to figure out how to navigate and sent him another email explaining the situation. And anyways, he said, well, I thought you'd know I was joking. So for 2 days I'd stressed out, and it was just his humor that did not come through on an email because there was no tone or anything. So yeah.
That is definitely a problem with not knowing just how they're trying to get their message across. And especially with that, you don't know if people are being sarcastic and funny. Like, it's very, very hard to tell in an email, let alone, like, sometimes in real life, it's hard to tell if people are being sarcastic.
Exactly. I mean, there's people who have drier humor than others and you don't know. But yeah, email, you don't even have a facial expression or anything, or just start to understand their humor if you don't see them regularly. So yeah, definitely can be tricky to navigate the technological world. But wow, is it awesome to be able to get instant messages, information back on things. There's a lot of great things, but definitely some things we still have to really reflect upon and know in order to use it to the best of our skills and abilities.
For sure, if we're aware of the negative impacts that social media can bring to us, then, and we can go from there and take steps to improve the way we use social media and use it in a positive way for texting and messaging, to stay connected to people, and then like try not to have as much screen time because that negatively affects our brains. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of positives and negatives, but if we're aware of the negatives and can control that, then technology can be a really positive thing.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree.
Awesome. Thank you for your time. Very much appreciative. Thank you.
Anytime, especially when it helps keep you off the technology.
Sounds good. And we're going to wrap it up there. Thank you for listening. And we're back with our third and final interview. Today, I will be interviewing my Nana. Nana, how are you doing today?
I'm excellent. Thank you.
I'm glad you're doing well. Thank you for being on the podcast today. So we're going to revisit the question, how do we understand ourselves as a result of social media and technology? So the first question I have for you today, Nana, is, have you ever used filters before?
No, I have not. I know nothing about filters other than they're just changing how you look, which I think is a little off, I guess.
That's a fair point of view. What are your thoughts on how filters are changing people's appearances for them to maybe make themselves feel better?
Well, I think we are who we are, and we should all be happy with who we are right now, and we don't need to be touching that up. If you want to touch it up, get up and get some exercise, but you don't need to be faking what you look like.
That's a great answer. Thank you. Moving on to our second question. Do you have social media?
No, I do not.
What kind of phone do you have, Nana?
I have a flip phone, so it's just a phone. No media, no extra.
That means she can only call on her phone. That's crazy. So, since you don't have social media, what are your thoughts on social media?
Well, I don't want to be on it because I don't feel it's any benefit to me. I make a phone call or I email someone, and then if they have time, we chat. If they don't, then we chat another time, just over the phone.
That's a good way to connect with people instead of over social media, for sure. So, moving on to the third question now. How does technology keep you connected to others?
Well, the email, I can email someone and say, hey, are you going to be available to chat on a certain time or a certain day? And then they'll just quickly, send an email back if they can or can't on that day. And that's how we connect.
Do you ever feel like you're missing out by not being able to message over social media or even text?
No.
Why do you not feel like you're missing out?
Well, because everything I do isn't that important that I need to be on it right now and I need an answer right now. Whatever I do can wait.
That's a good answer. And some additional questions. How does technology and connections differ from back when you were a teenager?
Well, I would describe them as night and day because our phone was used for communication only. The phone was on the wall, and when you called someone, it was to make an arrangement for something. It wasn't used for personal, to say, hey, how you doing? We didn't do that.
What was it like back when there were no iPhones? What would you do in a day?
Well, we played outside when I was younger. There was, we played, and we would meet up with friends and do simple things, it seems like, compared to now. We'd have slumber parties but we didn't chat all day, all the time. If we had a little time, we were usually working.
Fair enough. And just one more additional question. When you see teenagers on their phones nowadays, what are your thoughts on that? As you didn't do that when you were our age.
Well, the technology is there for everyone to be more knowledgeable. But I think when we spend too much time on the phone, we are losing touch with the personal side, and we need personal interactions as well as communications to be a healthy society. If we're so involved in just ourselves, we're not paying attention to everything around us.
I completely agree with that. That's a fantastic answer. Thank you. And just to revisit our main question, how do we understand ourselves as a result of social media and technology? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I think sometimes the technology can deter or maybe make us feel less confident, less able, because we are too busy into ourselves, and we feel we have to do so much more rather than taking time and enjoying the simple things. We need to take time to enjoy the simple things in order to appreciate things more.
That's a great answer. I think we do need to appreciate what's around us instead of focusing just on a brick, a phone, if you will. So, yeah, I completely agree. Thank you for your time, Nana. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed those interviews. I learned a lot from them, and I hope you did too. Now, just remember that technology has changed so much and that it is a positive thing, but don't let it control you and don't let it take over your life. So, technology is a great way to communicate, but just make sure we don't overuse it, because otherwise it can leave long-lasting problems to our mental health and physical health. So I did a survey with 25 teenagers, and I asked them 3 questions. I asked them what their screen time is. I asked them if they knew the maximum amount of screen time per day, and I asked them if they knew the negative effects of screen time. And the answers may shock you, because 44% knew that the maximum amount of screen time you should limit yourself to is 2 hours per day. Now, 44% of the people that answered knew that. Yet, no one out of all 25 responses had 2 hours or less of screen time. So although they knew they should have 2 hours or less, everyone still had more. Now, everyone was aware of the negative effects as well. Almost everyone answered except for one. And although they know the negative effects, they still use more than the recommended amount per day. And I'll leave you with that, because that is quite interesting, and I think it's important that you yourself reflect and answer those questions yourself to see what kind of answer you would get from that. Now, the last message I want to leave you with is that it's important to stay present and just enjoy your life and enjoy the things that are happening instead of focusing only on your phone. You'll create way more memories and have a way better life if you just enjoy and go out and be adventurous and make connections and memories with people. Don't miss the important things in life. Manage your screen time, and some ways you can manage your screen time are just by turning off your notifications, setting screen time limits, setting curfews for screen time, have tech-free zones, and just simply putting away your phone at social gatherings. That's all I have for the podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you learned as much as I did. Thank you.